Hi, hello everybody. Welcome to the second event of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. With me today in the studio, I have Nona Yehia from Vertical Harvest and Lisa Ploum from StartHub Wageningen. Welcome. I'm super glad that you are here today with us. We have very cool program for you today. As mentioned in the invitation, we will talk about vertical harvest and its beautiful business model and this beautiful initiative in the first part of this webinar. And afterwards, Lisa Ploum will help us to reflect on Nona's initiative and take lessons learned for the Urban Greenhouse Challenge and the concepts that you are going to develop. In the first part, Nona will present her enterprise, and after her presentation, we'll have some time to answer your questions. So make sure to put them in the chat. And when Lisa is going to present, you can put your questions also in the chat, and she will try to answer them as she speaks. But let's see how it works. Otherwise, we'll answer them afterwards. The webinar is being recorded. We'll share the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel. And I wish you a lot of pleasure with this webinar. And I give the floor to Nona for the first half an hour.
Thank you, Marta. And Lisa, a pleasure to present with you. I'll wait for the slides to come up, but I'm Nona Yehia, as Marta said. I'm co-founder and CEO of Vertical Harvest Farms. Let's go back, to the beginning. And I think what's unique in this context is I didn't set out to be a vertical farmer, but I'm an architect and an entrepreneur and have always believed in the idea that architecture can be a powerful vehicle for change. So this is the context that we're talking about today. And I really see these farms as being a tool that can impact our communities. And so I'll focus on how that can happen. It's, with this belief that 10 years ago, following my passion for food and experiences growing up with a brother with disabilities, that I, along with a very talented group of professionals, began building a business to address key issues in our community in Wyoming. I don't know if many of you have been to Wyoming, but it's a very cold place. We have a 4-month growing season. And we also have, people don't move to the mountain town of Jackson Hole really to develop careers. But when I moved there, there was a burgeoning local economy and community. And in that community, there were people who were born and raised in Jackson, but weren't able to find consistent, meaningful employment in their town. And that's people with physical and intellectual disabilities. So they were able to wash dishes, clean hotel rooms, but they weren't able to access jobs within the local community. On the other hand, we had business owners who were struggling with transient employees who would come to Jackson Hole to want to ski. We live in the mountains, and then they'd leave. And so we kind of put this idea together to say, if we were going to bolster the local food community here, could we also solve other problems as well? And so we began to build this business, Vertical Harvest, that you see the greenhouse that we started with. This is our first facility, where we were dedicated to the mission of not only growing food, but grow futures. And so, we thought that sustainable communities are successful ones. And how could this building type address key concerns of our community that would enable it to become more sustainable? So our mission really started with a simple mandate to responsibly grow as much food as possible and provide as many quality jobs as possible, and do both year round. So we became, the first vertical greenhouse in North America. We became, we designed and operated this flagship farm as a 3-story hydroponic greenhouse that grows 10 acres of food on a tenth of an acre. And it also provides meaningful employment and career development for people with intellectual and physical disabilities. So 5 years into our operation, we have seen how food can have a profound impact on the community and the people in it. But what started as a local grassroots effort was always couched in global issues. We just saw, COP26 wrap up. And, I think that this is an issue that's been around for a while. You see this quote that I'm showing you here today was in 2014. That, we must produce 70% more food by the middle of the century, or else that, our current agricultural practices will no longer support large human civilizations. This is an alarming, quote that was being sounded, 6 years ago. And so, this is not about our grandkids or our kids' lifetimes, even your own. You're probably quite a bit younger than me, but this is a problem that is about our lifetime. And this year, the UN has indicated that we're in code red for humanity. This is a clear challenge, but equally a profound opportunity to create new models that exist at the intersection of food security, development, and the environment. And we see our prototype farm that I just showed you as a tool that has the potential to address all three. So in this sense, we position the business on the recognition that it's high time for point solutions to give way to systemic and resilient ones. Point solutions alleviate symptoms, but don't address root causes. And if we don't address root causes, we won't be able to stop the collapse of our natural and social systems. Even consumers understand that social and environmental issues are linked. And that as the 17, sustainable development goals put out by the UN indicate, that to make any kind of real headway, you have to design solutions that make progress against multiple challenges simultaneously. And I think this is what's so exciting about the project, in the way that the Greenhouse Challenge has been positioned this year. So to that end, we firmly believe at Vertical Harvest that food is the strongest connection to human and environmental health. And we believe that food will be the defining issue of the 21st century. So the last year has exposed how fraught and fragile our food system is globally, and we're in the need of a great food transformation. There's no silver bullet solution here, and I think that's what's so exciting. But this transformation will not happen without widespread multi-sector, multi-level action that leverages innovation for systemic change. So you guys are all very familiar about the fundamentals of controlled environment agriculture, but it's one of these innovations, right? CEA is agriculture that cultivates crops in an enclosed environment, allowing for the optimized growing conditions, incredible efficiency, and with valuable resources like water and land. It's less harmful with, reduced fertilizers and pesticides, and critically allows farmers to grow anywhere. And this is why you're all here today, because you believe in the power of what we do with indoor agriculture. And vertical CEA allows us to optimize how much food we grow in limited areas. So by going up, we're actually increasing available surface area for cultivation. These are the fundamentals of CEA farms today. And we've seen the industry, especially in the last 2 years, cultivate great attention. But we believe that it is the promise of scale that will enable CEA to contribute to a substantial realignment of food system priorities and move the industry beyond a point solution. If we can create a network of farms that bolster local food economies at scale, we can then participate in the creation of a fair and sustainable food system. At scale, we can pursue creative partnerships across business, policy, and science to spur action for change and increased food access. At scale, we can reconnect our cities with food, quality food, that is grown, processed, and distributed within communities. Which is why at Vertical Harvest, our mission is a big and audacious one: to help the planet people and public grow well. We grow better food in futures where food becomes our medium to make positive change. Whereas before vertical harvest, our farmers were bagging groceries and washing dishes, like in the story I began with. Now they are leaders and trailblazers in the fast-growing green CEA industry. This opportunity has created a sea change of perception of what this population is able to do. For instance, meet Sean on your left, who spent most of his life washing dishes, but now has advanced as a facilities engineer with unique knowledge in this nascent and growing industry. Nikki in the middle has become an advocate for people with disabilities, participating in panels across the nation, talking about her experience with vertical harvest. And Michelle on the right, who worked 20 years in the back of the kitchen, now heads our lettuce growing department. This has not only facilitated immense professional growth, but personal and community growth, leading to increased independence within the communities. We've developed the Grow Well model that not only deals with professional growth, but personal growth, teaching our employees valuable skills like public speaking, how to manage their finances, and things that are necessary to achieve an independent lifestyle. And then finally, we encourage our employees to give back to the community. And if you think about people with intellectual and physical disabilities, that table has always been turned. They've always been the recipient of charity in the communities. And here we've empowered our employees to actually find the causes that they're passionate about and have the strength to be able to contribute to advances in the community and what they feel are important. So this is how vertical harvest is creating smarter, greener, and more equitable farms. And at the same time, we're showing that they can be profitable. In fact, it's because of this very balance that they have the potential to be profitable. Our model locates farms on underutilized land in low-income, low-access urban neighborhoods. We hire from underrepresented communities who struggle to find consistent employment at a livable wage. We grow superior produce locally, distributed from farm to fork in 24 hours at the peak of its nutritional and taste value. And we've also created a new type of civic building, like a public library or a community center, one that's a reflection of a community's values and responsive to its needs and wants. Driven by our social impact, we are building a new type of mission-critical community infrastructure. Infrastructure in terms of both the hard physical assets, the buildings, the growing systems, the technology, and the soft infrastructure of social work, community, and population health, green jobs training, shoring up local food supply chains, and bolstering the entire local food system to become resilient. Our next project is here that you see, located in Westbrook, Maine. Maine imports over 95% of its food due to its short growing season, but this area, like many others, also has a workforce housing problem. On a surface parking lot, we have developed a master plan that co-locates our farm with affordable housing, retail, and public amenities, creating public-private partnerships that tailor developments to what the community needs. And that's a process that will initiate in every development we build, because we're building our farms to function as a community hub, because food is the nexus for just about everything we truly value. And just as we discussed earlier, by focusing on systems and relationships to address root cause issues, you can start to see how our farms might be an answer. Our food is not a luxury item. We grow a diversity of crops with a range of price points to work with a range of sales channels. This is our distinct value proposition. In addition to retail and restaurants, we work with the local institutions such as school districts, hospitals, nursing homes, college campuses, selling them our produce and building relationships to help solve challenges around food insecurity and nutrition. Our customers have mandates to purchase local, and we can respond to that mandate at scale. We're also helping our regional partners meet their own UN SDG commitments. The possibilities within this system are infinite. And with a diversity of crops, we can tailor to nutritional and cultural needs of each farm's region. With our direct-to-consumer program, our farm share can be daily medicine with a produce prescription from your doctor, or you can sign up for a box that supports a climatarian diet, or we can accept SNAP to maximize the value a family receives from their benefits. And we're just getting started. We have a plan to build 10 farms in the next 5 years. There are over 800 highly distressed urban neighborhoods and over 300 secondary cities in the United States with low income and low access challenges like food deserts. Situating our farms in these locations means energy is cheaper, cleaner, and more accessible. The labor pool is larger, and we have access to public-private partnerships that make the financing for these projects efficient. Our goal is to create a network of farms that serve locally, support regionally, and scale nationally to maximize our potential impact. And what's really important is that we measure the good that we're doing. So we've developed a live dashboard to provide for transparency of and visibility into the achievement of social and environmental impacts as we achieve our network of farms. And we know that being a successful business in the 21st century will mean embracing the complexity of multiple SDG and the pressures of the day. We'll need the metrics to create a model to fulfill the true promise of ESG financing, and that's environmental social governance financing. These metrics enable us to access innovative incentives such as sustainability bonds and other tools to develop a template for successful financing. These are expensive projects, and we need to be able to access different ways of financing them. Impact measurement and reporting serves as an important driver to attract greater and more diverse sources of capital and allows us to be accountable to the return on investment investors and partners want to see. We are experiencing converging economic, climate, and health crises across the globe that are rooted in people's access to healthy food, resilient, nourishing jobs, and fair housing. We're incredibly honored to be working, alongside inspiring people like you who are trying to solve the world's problems in a more complex way and understanding that you can solve more problems than one at once. So thank you for your time, and I really look forward to having a discussion with you all.
Thank you very much, Nona. It was great to listen to your presentation, and I was very surprised about your plans for the coming years. It sounds really amazing. It's so yeah. So now, great story. Thank you very much for that. There are some questions already in the chat, but I wanted to start with a question that is, I think, quite relevant for this challenge. So with your first vertical farm, it has been established already 6-7 years ago, I think. So what kind of impact on a local scale can you see? Like what did this farm change for the local citizens who live around the farm?
Well, one very visceral thing that happened is, during the pandemic, distribution channels to our town were severed. So we were the only farm that was able to sell produce to our grocery stores. So that was a really kind of, I think, big wake-up call to why we need a local food revolution, right? That we need to find ways to supplement traditional agriculture. So I think that is, one thing that we learned pretty quickly, pretty obviously. The other is why it's important to create public-private partnerships. I think that, by anchoring our farms within municipalities so that municipalities are ambassadors for what we're doing and have helped get the project off the ground, well, then they can also help us mitigate some of the challenges that the industry faces as a whole, right? That energy, how can we, I think that's the biggest criticism of vertical farming, is how much energy it uses. So municipalities are also struggling with that issue, right? Trying to make their grids greener, so that if you're participating in an urban context, in, the downtown corridor, it becomes much easier to help solve that problem. So for example, Vertical Harvest is developing a partnership with the town to access their energy from one of the solar farms that the town is now building. So we will be part of a green energy solution. If you're on the outside of town, you're not going to be able to do that, right? And then thirdly, and most profoundly, is of the 20 people that work in our greenhouse, their lives have been completely changed, right? Like I said, before Vertical Harvest, they were cleaning hotel rooms, and we all have to start somewhere. But the fact remains is that this population was not able to find a career path that was meaningful. We're all at school doing what we do because work is meaningful to us, right? We want to be able to contribute to our societies. And I think that, this population hasn't had that chance all the time, and Vertical Harvest has enabled that. And we have seen, when you focus on ability rather than disability, it's really incredible what people can do.
Yeah, great. And I have seen in the chat one of the questions that is also like that I have written down for myself, because it's a question from Nicolo. So many of the urban farms are really struggling with the business model while you are expanding. So what's your secret behind it? Like, how do you make such an incredible success of your business?
Well, I think that one of the big questions for the industry has been this one about scale, right? How big does the farm have to be in order for the unit metrics to make sense, right? Because it's all about the unit metrics. And so the farm in Maine is quite a bit bigger than the farm in Jackson. So in Wyoming, our farm, and I'm sorry, it's not metric, but it has 14,000 square feet of growing area. In Maine, we have 200,000 square feet of growing area, right? And the metrics that we use there operationally is we need to push yield and speed. And so we have a variety of types of crops that we grow. Most of our competitors, who are sometimes struggling, only grow lettuce heads. And we grow lettuce heads, but we also grow microgreens, which are a very fast growing product. But, there's only so much room in the market right now for microgreens if you only concentrate on selling to the grocery stores. But if you expand that, like I talked about in my talk, where, microgreens are so valuable because they're so packed in nutritional, the nutritional aspect of what, they're sometimes 40 times the nutritional quantity of their adult counterpart. So hospitals are very interested in microgreens. Schools are really interested in microgreens. So we've been able to, expand our customer base. And a lot of our competitors do not do that. They only focus on grocery stores. And so in the end, if you think about all the examples that I'm giving you, it's about creating partnerships to facilitate this large scale farm, and to be able to make sure that you can grow it efficiently and quickly and sell it efficiently and quickly. And I think the public-private partnerships are key. I think locating the farms in the urban core are key, so people see what you're doing. They know that they want to support it because it's, a business that really addresses key concerns of each local community.
Yeah, okay. And so just to be clear, you don't get any subsidies or donations for your farm. It's all okay.
It's all, but the thing that's important to understand, Marta, is that, I think Europe does a much better job than America of this, but there are incentives to address impact in the United States. So I mentioned in my talk, utilizing sustainability bonds, right? These are bonds, which means it's debt that, we create partnerships to develop. And Vertical Harvest is able to borrow money at a very low interest rate because of the impact that we're having. So, our governments have set up incentives to be able to incentivize, businesses that are endeavoring to create more conscious capitalism. And we're taking advantage of that, but not only on the environmental aspect, on the social aspect as well. And so that makes us a really powerful candidate in the United States. We have new market tax credits. That's something that you're able to get a loan, in this project for $8 million after 7 years. If we're able to prove our impact, it's forgiven. So that's something, that it's considered equity. So it's not about charity, it's about leveraging incentives and tools that governments provide in order to create an efficient capital stack.
Okay, thank you. There are quite some questions in the chat, but I think maybe you could answer some of them when Lisa is presenting. And I would like to finish the Q&A with one question from Henry. He is asking, what is in your eyes or in your experience, the biggest challenge or pitfall of the vertical farming at the moment?
I think that the industry is a bit over-scienced. I think that in America, I think that actually some of the big farms have gone too big, and they've lost their focus on, is it about food or is it about technology, right? Is it about really solving environmental issues, or is it about technology? And I think that a lot of the farms have, taken, plays from the tech boom and are applying it to this new boom here. And I think at Vertical Harvest, we truly believe that this is a movement that needs to happen, right? And that we can use technology to empower people and not replace people. And I think that's a huge aspect that is necessary right now, because in the end, these farms have to be something that people care about. And can we move beyond them just being cool? Right? Because they are cool. It's great that a robot can farm. I mean, how exciting, right? That's amazing. But if we truly want to create a food revolution, which I believe in, and the people I work with believe in, then we need to make the farms more than just cool. They need to be anchored in the communities in which they serve, and they need to have a function that people care about, and people need to support them. And I don't know if the industry is moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. And what I'm a little worried about is some of these big names that have gone out and raised a lot of money, and that the metrics to show their success are just not there. And that there will be skepticism in the industry moving forward. At once that's a real concern, but on the other end, it's actually a real opportunity to be able to learn from our own mistakes as well as other people's mistakes. And I think that's the exciting part of being at such a new industry. But I think that the advice that I would give is to really stay clear to your mission, right? And to make sure that there's a focus on the mission, and that will guide you through, the whole initiative.
Okay, great. Thank you for this piece of advice, Nona. So is that okay if you answer some of the questions in the chat? There are questions about the electricity use, about the hydroponics, how children friendly it is. There are lots of interesting questions. Some of them are critical of vertical farming in terms of the biodiversity. So if you could stay with us to chat a little bit with the people who are
Sure.
watching, it would be great. And I would like to give the floor now to, let me just see, to Lisa, who is also with us, to talk about the mission model canvas and how we can use a Nona example to fill in mission model canvas, or how can we get inspired by her example. So the floor is yours, Lisa. I'm going to upload your presentation and enjoy the second part of the webinar.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you, Nona, for the very inspiring story. I think it serves the second part of this webinar very well, because I'm going to talk a little bit more about this mission model canvas. It's a tool that can help you outlining your mission and put it at the heart of your business idea. So I think that fits very nicely with the story that we just heard. I also saw a lot of nice questions in the chat. It's really helpful indeed to have them. So keep them coming if you have questions for me as well. I'm sitting here in the capacity of StartHub Wageningen. It's the student incubator that we run at the university. We are working together with a team of my colleagues to bring initiatives like for instance, the vertical farming further from students from the Wageningen University, but also from the students from the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. And that's why I wanted to show you these faces here, because we are here for you, also to support you in your in the months to come and the milestones that you have to deliver. So know where to find us. I will have my contact details at the end of the slide as well. So I'm going to start with a very brief introduction to what we do at the startup, so you know with what we can support you with, and then I will move into a short explanation of the mission model canvas. It's very brief, and it's you who needs to put in the work afterwards to do it actually. But I wanted to show you an alternative to the traditional business model canvas that can help you in bringing this challenge to a successful end. Because I think at the end of the talk by Nona, she really made clear, like, okay, follow your mission and put that at the heart of your initiative. And that's easier said than done, I believe. So every help that you can get is probably welcome. At the StartHub, we more or less have the same philosophy or quote as a vertical farm. It's empowering people. So it's not so much about whether you have the most successful business idea or the most promising technology. And what was said about focusing too much on the technology is something that we see as well. But the people behind it, it's really important. So at this place, we try to empower sustainable entrepreneurship by starting up people. And we do that by providing educational programs. So bachelor students, master students, PhD students from the Wageningen University can join all kinds of courses and programs to kind of empower them in their entrepreneurial journey. But we also organize events and workshops like this one, for instance, for the student challenges. And with that, we always focus on developing your entrepreneurial mindset or your competencies. So yes, we can help you with setting up your initiative also in the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, but it's really about you as a person and what you want to learn. And so what do we offer? We have a large network of experts, mentors, coaches, researchers, other universities. So also in this this challenge that you're about to start with, probably you already have some ideas of what you would like to work on in the coming weeks for the first milestone. Maybe if you reach out to us, we know some people in our network that can help you one step further. So it's really about that. We also have a prototyping laboratory with some 3D printers, laser cutters. So if you would get to a stage where you would need or want to do some prototyping on your design or technology, that's possible. Of course, you then need to be located in Wageningen, but there are also ways on helping you along the way from a distance. And so we try to shape your mindset and build your business. So there are two different things at stake. But also for this challenge that you're about to embark on, it's about building your business, and you will see in the milestones that you have to deliver that there is attention being paid to the social aspects of your project, the environmental aspect, but also the economic aspect. So, and that's what we heard in the story of the vertical farm as well. Of course, this balance between the people, the planet, and the profit is important, and how to then measure that profit is a different aspect in the Mission Model Campus. So we're here today to talk about how you can develop your idea for the Urban Greenhouse Challenge with societal impact. I think this is a new add-on to the Urban Greenhouse Challenge this year, is to really try to rethink the whole concept of an urban greenhouse, keeping in mind and putting at the heart the societal impact that you can have. And again, relating back to the story that we've heard, it's really important to live up to that mission that you have. So working from an idea to the mission, it is important to keep some things in mind. And with the example that we've heard, it's including the local food community. It's people with a distance to the labor market. It might be also business owners who find trouble. So it's involving stakeholders as users of your initiative. And with that, you apply your business principles to solve a problem. And the Mission Model Canvas is one of those business-related tools that can help you in putting your mission in the core of your business. It's also about adapting your solution in terms of the value for society. And so there's no business or project out there that started with an initial idea and they implemented it as it was. It's about changing, adapting to the feedback that you get, adapting to the needs of the stakeholders involved. And if you listened carefully, you've heard that for each different location of the vertical farm, they've identified different problems that they want to tackle. And they put these problems at the core of that vertical farming initiative. And so there are different steps involved when you want to create a business with societal impact. The Mission Model Canvas, as said, is a tool that helps you map out all the different elements of your business initiative in the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, but keeping in mind these societal actors. And I think it is a helpful way of working with your idea that you have right now and see how you can envision the different people that are involved. Hopefully, and probably you've mostly all heard about the Business Model Canvas. If you haven't heard about it, it's not a problem for the remainder of the session because we'll go through several steps of this Business Model Canvas anyway. But it's good to know that there are 9 building blocks involved and that there is one part that's really focused towards the customer. There is one part on the left that's really about producing the offer. So what do you put in? What do you need in key activities and key resources? What partners do you have? And of course, in the bottom there is the cost structure. So what does it cost to implement your idea of an urban greenhouse, and what are the revenues that you get out of this? What you see here is the traditional business model canvas. So it is somewhat focused towards that value proposition that you have, and Nona already mentioned that their value proposition really relies on involving local institutions. And that's their unique feature in their vertical farming initiative, is that they put the local institutions at the heart of it. And so that's the core of their business. This is the traditional business model canvas, but for initiatives like the vertical farm and like the projects that you are going to work on, there is a difference if you really start from a mission or really a vision that you want to achieve. And that requires to rethink this business model canvas a little bit into the mission model canvas. And that really would help you, I think, in your further developments of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge milestones. And so what you see here is that there are 4 building blocks that they have changed into different categories. In a traditional business model canvas, you have customer segments, and in this case, they are referred to as beneficiaries. And I will get to the different categories in a little bit to discuss them a bit more in detail. The cost revenue structures, they are changed to budget on the one hand and achievement on the other hand. The channels to which you reach customers are changed to deployment, and the customer relationships are changed to support. If you have any questions for me, drop them in the chat, then I will get to them while going through the presentation. Just so you know, there are very good resources out there about the mission model canvas and about the business model canvas. So I will share that with Marta at the end, so you can have a read on it, look a little bit deeper into it if you want to use the tools. So as said, the customer segment is changed into beneficiaries. And with this, you can see this clearly also from the example from Nona, because there she said, okay, it's not just one customer segment that we want to reach. It's different people, different groups in society who have different needs and respond differently to your solution. In her case, the story started with the access to jobs, that there were a lot of people working in restaurant kitchens or bagging groceries, and that they, with the vertical farm, give them a different outlook on their career and life and how that affects their lives. But it was also about the business owners, about the universities, the local stores, the hospitals, all their stakeholders involved. And for them, they each have different value proposition. And so with your idea that you have in mind that you entered the challenge, think about who are the beneficiaries that are involved in our idea. And so the solution reaches multiple layers of users in society with different needs and problems. And it is your challenge to understand these different needs and problems. Because if you do understand them very well, you can adapt your solution towards it. And that's something that you see that vertical farming is doing again and again by thinking about, okay, who are we serving? What are the local institutions involved? And how can we create this local food community and solve other problems? And so it's always an and. The bottom layer of the mission model canvas is not allocated to only a cost structure and revenues, profit, but it is really related to the mission budget. So what is the value created for these users, and what's then the overall achievement of the mission? And you saw in the story of vertical farming that they have this dashboard where they try to measure not just economic profits, but also the amount of maybe water that they save or energy, the number of people that they reach. So there are different metrics involved when looking at these mission budget and achievement categories. And so what is the impact that you create? And then you can think about your societal impact and the environmental impact that you have. They're not so much linked to financial revenues, not saying that financial revenues and costs are not important. It's just a different way of phrasing it and also getting other stakeholders on board if you're very clear about the additional impact that you make. I see that there are still questions coming in also from Nona and that she's answering them in the chat, so also make use of that if you want to do that. The third category, the channels and the traditional business model canvas, that is replaced by the category of deployment. So what will it take to deploy your product or service, your urban greenhouse, to the widespread use of people involved and who need it? So when are you successful a number of users? Who are these users? What does it, how much time does get to get into the point of use? So there are all kinds of things that you can think about in terms of how does your urban greenhouse reach and attract different users, and when do you call it a success? And so it's something to think about when developing your idea. The fourth one is all about your relationship with your stakeholders involved, but also how you create acceptance amongst the users that are involved. So you have to think about legal structures, policy around building infrastructure, how your users of your urban greenhouse behave, what are their needs, and creating awareness among them. And so it's really about, in a mission-driven business model, it's extremely important to get, how they call it, the buy-in from different stakeholders, because you need them to build on your story. All right, there is a question from Mace. Thank you for that. And I'm going to just try to answer it. So the question is, in what way does a business model canvas differ in usage when comparing a private and a public company? I think then you mean maybe a profit and not-for-profit initiative. In principle, you can use the business model canvas for every existing organization that is out there, but you will probably struggle sometimes with some of the aspects of the business model canvas. But in principle, there is no difference in using a business model canvas for a profit or not-for-profit organization. But again, with the mission model canvas, it is targeted in including these different layers of success, of impact. So if you're talking about a not-for-profit organization, it's easier to use a mission model canvas. But in principle, you can use it for both organizations. And I don't think there is a difference between the use of between the both of them. I hope that answers your question. So where do you guys start? Because this is your project, this is your challenge that you work on. And I would say start with that mission. So what type of impact do you want to create? You have heard about the case, the challenge that is out there, the place where it's happening. You've heard already from the people involved in the Urban Greenhouse Challenge what characteristics are there, what are the problems that are at hand. So start from there and then think about, what is your mission? What do you think is worthwhile pursuing? And start with thinking about these beneficiaries. So what are the problems and the needs and wants of these different people involved in the urban greenhouse on the sites where you're focusing it on? And then think about whether and how your value proposition matches with that need for society. And then thinking about that solution that you have, trying to involve everybody in that process. It's really important to get user feedback, to reach out to the local communities, how hard it also might be doing it remotely. But I know that the Urban Greenhouse Challenge team has put in place contacts that you can reach out and ask what these local communities involved need and want. Looking at the chat, all right. Maybe your question, Mace, as a follow-up. It's not clear whether the future site is allowed to make profit. That's, I think, something that Marta or the team from the Urban Greenhouse Challenge can respond to, because that's something that I'm not aware of. But still, even if that's not the case, you can use the mission model canvas, especially the mission model canvas, to point out what types of impact and value you create, putting aside your economic value. So that's why this might help you. So it's really about solving a problem that includes different stakeholders, different people on different levels. And I think that's something that I took away from Nona's story, is that it is a local effort, but it has systemic consequences. So it's not about only solving the point problem, just the very local, but really thinking about the system involved. Try to test and adapt and test again. Don't stay in your head too long. Try to see if your idea works and resonates with the people around you. And that's what we call validating assumptions. And in the second workshop, we will get to that as well. And it's also about being creative and enjoying the process. I think that was clear also from Nona's story, is that she's really enthusiastic about what she does. It's about continuous change and growing and learning from each other. So those are also important things to take that into account. With that, I would like to wrap up my part for today. I think it maybe was a lot to throw at you, but it is a helpful tool to map out your initiative that you have in your head. Think about these different users and stakeholders involved, like the story from vertical farming, and then try to piece to match all the pieces together and create a comprehensive, complete story around that idea that you have. Thank you a lot for your attention. Here is my email address if you want to know more or talk a little bit more about your mission model canvas. And if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Thanks a lot, Lisa. There was a lively discussion on the chat. Also, still some questions for Nona. I was actually wondering how, because it still seems very difficult to fill this mission model canvas, and who can be of help? What would be your advice for students? Where should they look for supports in developing this?
Yeah, so if they look for support in how to deal with the canvas, they can always reach out to me. But if they want to have feedback on whether they are on the right track or thinking about the right things, it's about involving the people that it's aimed for. So it's involving the local communities or a representative of them, talking to case owners or listening once again to the webinar of 2 weeks ago, where they sketched out the problem and find connecting points, look into the literature, in not just academic literature, because otherwise you get stuck into, okay, we can do something that's technologically advanced, but we forget about the people. And that's what this Greenhouse Challenge is not about. It's about involving the society. And so those are really important starting points.
Okay. And because in the second round of the challenge, we will have this follow-up session on business model canvas. How does it relate? Is it like, could you explain about the relationship?
Yeah, we're going to build on the mission model canvas, because in the first deliverables, they also need to do something with that, the students, right, for the greenhouse. And then we build upon that in developing these building blocks further to also address the more technological point of view, economic point of view, societal and environmental point of view.
Okay, very nice. And the students will also get opportunity to talk to coaches from StartHub to check the solution. So there'll be extra support available for that.
Definitely.
Yes. I was thinking, because there is also one question maybe for me in the chat about the solution part. So I just wanted to take a step back and just reflect on the purpose of this challenge. So how you should see it is there's indeed a site already, and it's all at this moment. It's a project of University District of Columbia, but you don't need to stick to what is here now. The idea is that you really go beyond what is here and come up with your own solution, and also think about how can I create a model where we don't need UDC, where we actually can run a successful business with local stakeholders, maybe with some other companies, but without seeing UDC as a main site owner or a kind of the sponsor of this entire project. So I would encourage you to think beyond the situation that is here. And that's often what we see as the biggest challenge in the challenge, is that people are really focused on the situation that is here. But it's really about taking this site as an inspiration and then taking it to the next step and developing your own story and your own solution. So that's a piece of my advice. And Nicolo, I already have been in contact with you, so we can discuss it further on the phone if you would like to chat about it more. Yeah.
And that point also helps, because then if you start envisioning it in a different context with the same philosophy behind it, you can also reach out to different local communities in your area to think that's close by, and you can ask people and see what the problems are in different places. And I think that's a great opportunity for all of you to really come up with your own creative, fitting solutions.
Yes.
Well, and
exactly.
I think one of the things, just it's such an interesting conversation, and thank you, Lisa, for your presentation. It would have been helpful to have you when we started. But we look at each greenhouse as 80% the same, right? It has all the building blocks, and then 20% customizable to each local community. And so when you look at something and replicate it, that's kind of a helpful. We created, ways for us to be able to manage change, because you can't have everything. You can't design everything each time, right? There are some fundamentals.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice indeed, because there's always a question how local, how adaptable the solution has to be. And when you give us this example, saying, okay, in your case, it's 80% a general model, and then you adapt it, I think that can be a very good piece of advice. So I would encourage everybody to think also in that way. Yeah. Okay, now thanks a lot for being here. It was really enjoyable to have you here as a guest with your great presentation. And also thanks a lot to everybody watching today. You have been a wonderful audience. Next week we have 2 more events, and they're also very exciting. One is about indoor farming, another one about inclusive design. So you will learn more about those relevant aspects. I hope to see you there, and have a great afternoon, great day, and thank you for watching and for joining.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.